A woman once lost her husband. They had spent their entire lives together. They met as freshmen in college, married shortly after, and from that moment on, they were rarely ever apart. Their only separations lasted a few days at a time, scattered across the decades, a couple of medical conferences, a few out-of-town seminars. They had both earned their MDs and built successful careers as physicians. The only other times they were away from each other were when their 3 children were born just a week or so in the hospital each time. That was it. No other separations. They raised 3 children. Later, they doted on their grandchildren, helping to raise them too. They worked together at the same hospital. They vacationed together, first at a modest lake cabin, and later, when life became more financially comfortable, renting a house on the coast. They loved their quiet evenings in front of the TV, though with their hectic hospital schedules, those nights were rare. They read books and had long, passionate debates about them. They took walks in the park, but now she walked the park trails alone. A widow. What a cold alien word. It felt as hollow as a solitary walk down an autumn path. Sometimes, purely out of habit, she would turn to her side to say, "Look, Marion, look at how beautiful that tree is," only to find nobody there. Of course, she had her children, her grandkids, her sister, and her brother. She had a huge circle of cousins and lifelong friends. She and her husband had always been deeply social people, yet it felt so strange. Out of a beautiful, decades-long marriage, the only thing left was this label. Widow. The U.S. had vanished. She felt as though both of them had died that day because without him, she ceased to exist the way she used to. But she held it together. She was strong. It was in her DNA, and life had reinforced it. She was a general surgeon, a profession that demanded immense courage, grit, and emotional resilience. That was her life code. It was the same standard she had instilled in generations of residents she trained, teaching them not just the surgical technique, but emotional fortitude. It was how she raised her children, who grew up to be brave, accountable adults. Eventually, her kids, relatives, and friends began to drop gentle hints, which eventually turned into blunt conversations. "You're wasting away in this loneliness. You're 60. That's not old these days. You're beautiful, brilliant, and social. You need to put yourself out there." So they set her up with a widower, an Army colonel recently retired. He had lost his wife 3 years prior. She had fought a long, grueling illness, and he had been by her side until her very last breath. But you can't save everyone, even if you pour your entire soul into it and love them more than life itself. Natalie, that was her name, explained it to him with a doctor's gentle authority. "You did everything humanly possible, Colonel. The cancer was just too aggressive. You bought her more time, and she fought a beautiful fight." They were introduced by family. It would have been rude to decline the invitation. They were brought together at a casual family barbecue at a lakeside cottage. There she was, elegant, sharp, robust. Natalie, with a thick crown of dark hair now, streaked with a prominent silver shock from the shock of her loss. That was how they met. It brought immense relief to their families, who had watched the fiercely independent Natalie fading away, and the disciplined, stoic colonel slowly cracking under the weight of his grief. What bloomed between them wasn't romance. It was friendship, that beautiful, pure, almost childlike word. And with that, the widow stopped putting her life on pause. The widower found his footing again. Together, they walked the park trails, talking about everything under the sun, books, movies, current events. But they also talked about their late spouses. They spoke about them at length, with deep tenderness, sometimes with tears, and sometimes with laughter. How deeply healing it is to have someone truly listen. When you speak about the person you lost, how incredible it is to be understood without having to explain your grief. It brings a profound sense of peace. As for replacing their lost partners, the thought never even crossed their minds. It was an impossibility. Loyalty doesn't expire at death. Real love never fades. But friendship heals. Conversations, children, and meaningful work heal. Through it all, the widow remains a wife, and the widower remains a husband. That's just the reality of it. And so they walked, together, side by side, and right behind them, two faint shadows trailed along the path. Because wherever there is light, there are always shadows. It's the most natural thing in the world. It was almost as if the four of them were walking together,